Hey everyone, in today's video we are going to talk about some double-digit addition and subtraction, and I'm going to give you 3 tips to keep in mind when you're teaching this to your first and second grade students. This video should be pretty straightforward, but I hope this gives you some ideas and tips to keep top of mind when you're teaching this potentially tricky subject to your students. If you haven't seen my videos before, then my name is Susan Jones. I'm a former first grade and K-2 literacy teacher, and I'm also currently getting my master's in curriculum and instruction from Boston University, and I also sub once or twice a week at my local K-2 school. I'm just a little bit obsessed with primary education, which is why I share all my ideas here for K-2 teachers just like you. If you're ready to dive into this video, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and let's go. Tip number 1 when teaching double-digit addition and subtraction is to make sure you are using base 10 blocks. Now, this one might seem very obvious, and I'm sure every first and grade teacher watching this video has had their students learn double-digit addition with these. But if you haven't, make sure you are using them, and if you are using them, make sure you're using them long enough. Our goal of teaching math concepts to our students is to make sure they actually understand what's happening. So just because a student can add 21 plus 33 easily doesn't necessarily mean they understand what they just did. Can they explain it? And that's where our base 10 cubes come in. We want our students to have a solid understanding of place value, and that's how these help. In our number system, we have numbers in the ones, tens, hundreds, so on and so forth. They continue up, but what happens is we only have the digits 0 through 9 available in each place. For example, in the ones place, you can only have 0 through 9 because once you get to 10 ones, it becomes a 10. And when we use these cubes and rods, we can actually show students what is happening. We're taking 10 of these little ones, we are turning it into a rod, and we can see that they're the same. I can see that if I get 10 of these ones here and 1 of these rods, they're exactly the same. But because of the way our base 10 number system looks, this is how it's going to look. It's going to be a 1 and a 0. So when kicking off our addition and subtraction, make sure every time you're doing this with your students, you are modeling using these rods. If it helps, you can have a tens and ones mat out if you need, or a hundreds, tens, ones mat, so you can show them what 23 plus 44 looks like. You can show them how we add the ones, you can show them how we add the tens, and how we find the sum. Now, some of your students might quickly go to that standard algorithm, especially if they've been taught it at home, and I don't want to say that's a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. But as long as you can make sure your students are actually understanding what's being represented when we add a 2-digit number or subtract a 2-digit number for that case, then you might need to back it up a little. Even if your students aren't using these as much when they are solving a problem, they aren't relying on them, have them go ahead and prove their thinking, have them show their thinking, and they can go ahead and draw some quick, lines and dots to show tens and ones on their paper. This will let you see if they really understand what's happening. This is so important, and in my place value unit over on TPT, after working through what place value is and a bunch of activities for place value, I have a bunch of addition and subtraction cards, and they're actually labeled, so there are some with no regrouping, others with mixed regrouping for both addition and subtraction. And in this unit, I explain to teachers that you should always have those base 10 blocks available in first and second grade for your students to rely on. These become so important when we are regrouping in addition and subtraction, so have them on hand, use them often, and even when you see your students starting to pull away from them, I'm not saying like make them revert back to this, but double check with them either through pictures or with these, make them show you that they understand what they're doing. All right, tip number 2 when teaching double-digit addition and subtraction is to teach students about partial sums or partial differences. This strategy works great, especially with addition. With partial differences and subtraction, there are some complexities in there, but let me show you how this works. Okay, the partial sum strategy for addition is pretty straightforward, so let's start there. What if we had the number 46 plus 34? Now, for the partial sum strategy, what students will do is kind of break them apart by place value. So here we have 40 plus 30, because that's what those numbers represent, equal 70. And then we can go to our ones. 6 plus 4 equals 10. Then students will add that together. Well, 70 plus 10 is 80. That's just a simpler way for them to break apart the numbers and get the solution. And as you can see, when there is regrouping, it's really no problem. Students can also do this with 3-digit numbers. I mean, really it can go as high as you need. Let's do 371 plus 506. And again, they will be tasked to write out the place values. So we have 800, 70 plus 0 equals 70, 1 plus 6 equals 7. Adding that all together, 877. Now, partial differences when there's no regrouping is pretty straightforward. So let's do 76 minus 52. You will again, by place value, have students subtract 50 from 70, 20, and then 6 minus 2 equals 4. And then they will add these together to get 24. But now what's going to happen if we have to regroup? Let's do 72 minus 56. I'll kind of just reverse these numbers here. Students will again be able to do 70 minus 50 equals 20. But now we have 2 minus 6, and students will recognize they can't take away 6 from a 2, but we still need to, when we're going to do this, we are going to do 6 minus 2 equals 4. But what students will have to recognize as you teach this, which is why I wouldn't do it until later, but you will teach them that this is going to be -4. So that way, unlike on this side over here where both of these numbers were positive, we have a negative number and we are combining these still. So instead of 20 plus 4, like over here, students are doing 20 minus 4 to get 16. They will simply have to recognize during partial sums that they are going to still do the bigger number minus the smaller one, but if they've had to switch it, it's going to become negative. Now, partial differences is also easy to see on an open number line. So if you've taught your students how to do an open number line, they could still go ahead and kind of break this up here into, 50 plus 6. And they can hop back 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These will represent as all tens. So then students can go 62, 52, 42, 32, 22. And then, have to extend that longer, they can hop back 6 ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if they need to, they can go ahead and count that back until they get to 16. Partial sums and partial differences is a great scaffold for students moving from using base 10 blocks and drawing illustrations to kind of writing out different algorithms before they get to the standard algorithm. Teachers love it because it emphasizes place value and it really puts a solid understanding of what each of the digits in these multi-digit numbers mean. And tip number 3 for teaching 2-digit addition and subtraction is to have students estimate first. Now, this is a great kind of number talk, number scenario type situation with your students where you can draw a 2-digit addition or subtraction problem on the board and then ask them to estimate what the answer might be. Or rather, it's better when you can be like, is this answer going to be higher than 100 or less than 100? What do you think? Or less than 50, higher than 50, whatever would kind of make sense with the problem that you threw up there. Why this works is it has students really thinking about their number sense, especially as students get older and more proficient at solving these problems. They kind of rush to that standard algorithm and they're not really paying attention, or they're just looking at the digits on the page and they know they need to solve something. So sometimes they come up with completely unreasonable answers, especially if they don't have that solid place value understanding first. So when we are estimating, we're actually asking students to look at the numbers on here and say, if the problem was 34 plus 27, and I say, is this higher or lower than 100? And then they're like, oh, it has to be lower because we have 30 and we have 20 something. Even if they don't know the ones place yet and figure that out, they know it's probably not going to get all the way to 100. Having these discussions first with your students before they go ahead and solve the problems really makes them think about what is happening. Is this an addition or a subtraction problem? Are we joining sets together, taking things away? How many tens do I have going on here? How many ones do I have going on here? Etc. Because remember, our goal when we're teaching addition and subtraction isn't just for students to solve that problem. While that is very important, it's equally as important for students to understand what they're doing. So there you have 3 tips to keep in mind when teaching double-digit addition and subtraction to your 1st and 2nd grade students. Just to run through them one more time, first is make sure you are using base 10 blocks often and for a long enough time. And then when your students are ready to kind of move on to the next one, you can teach the partial sums or partial differences strategy. And then lastly, you can also use estimating to make sure students have a solid number sense understanding of what the question is asking them. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up so I know. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and click that bell. That way you're notified of all my other videos. Now, I also have a bunch of math videos here in this playlist, so if there are other topics or skills or strategies you are looking for, go check that out. And if I don't have it, leave me a comment down below and let me know what video you would like to see. See you in the next one. Bye.